Okay, so returning after a weekend. So looking at our course outline, last class, the end of February, we worked on assignment 3. We figured out our storyboard and we got that uploaded, our rough storyboard sketch. And now we are going to be working out the proper timing. Because we're using Photoshop, we're not going to need gifmaker.me. That's if you're using only freeware to set the timing on the frames. And we're going to continue to understand that workflow that we got introduced to last class. Remember, these were the videos we went through. I'm not able to review everything each class. So remember, if you missed last class or if you're behind, these video assets can help you. But in general, we start with a storyboard sketch that tells us where we're going. So you want to have that open in your sketchbook. What I did, because I sketched it digitally, is I'll just have it open in preview off to the corner here. And it showed in 9 square frames, 3-on-3 grid, the beginning, middle, and an end of a transformation animation. So mine is the example of transforming the setting. My creature is going to be the thing we experience the animation through. The creature is going to be gobbling up this setting. The next thing we did was we started to build our assets. Now, assets are the pixels you need to make these keyframes and to tell your story. And you are required to use at least one asset that you've already created. So if I open up my file, I'm going to have actually 2 folders here. I have one that is what's called an assets file, and I have one that's called a stage file. I'm going to open them both in Photoshop. And what you want is to have your assets on one side, I prefer it on the left, and then your stage on the right. And what you can see on your stage is our 2 animation frames so far. Just very basic. I'm just adding some atmosphere and establishing the background. But what we have in our assets file are all these different pieces that tell our story. Turn them all on, and I want to match the last frame I did, which is something like this. Except my mist was down, I think, to only 15%. All right, so think of this as stage setting. Right? So I have my rocks in the front as a prop. Those are just going to stay on. I have my smoke machine. I have my little creature on the back bridge there. But I'm not going to use them yet, if I use them at all. I have some ground covering here for the roots of the tree. A lot of last class was building assets. I have the tree itself with the roots attached. I have the water glimmering and floating. And that reminds me, I've already kind of screwed something up because I don't think I made the water glimmer here. Nope, sure enough. So that's why we have it in 2 places. So in the stage, with your final shots, you can actually do animation tests and see if it's changing, if it's the right speed. And the assets is your treasure chest where you're building everything. So we've been using stop motion claymation as an analog example. And these are kind of the setups for that. You figure out what your character, your story, your setting is. You make a storyboard, right? Your storyboard is also your shot list. It's the things you need to create. Then we're going to set up your scene. I've set up my first scene here, which is an establishing shot, establishing the canyon. Then I'm going to shoot frame by frame. So I'm going to go over how we shoot, because in demonstrating this, I already messed up the shoot. So what do I mean? Well, in the first frame, I have the establishing shot. That's good. That's this. But in the next frame, I didn't make the water flicker, right? So I'm going to delete that frame, cut it from the film, and instead, I'm going to build my next frame here on the assets. And to do that, I'm going to take the opacity of my smoke up a little bit, or of my fog machine. I was going to do 15%, and then I'm going to flicker the water, which is right here. So I'm going to set this as magenta. I don't want to, nope, doesn't look different enough. Fuchsia. I don't want to forget it. So it's going to turn on and off, right? And so the last time I had it off, now I'm going to turn it on. And now how do I shoot this? This is now my stage, or this is now my setup shot for my stage. So I go to my topmost visible layer, and this is the workflow you'll all have to learn, right? First of all, make sure, you only have to do this at the beginning, but make sure you're working at 8 by 8 inches by 100 pixels per inch. Make sure you're filling the whole square. So if you have an empty background, fill that empty background with white or color, but don't have it be empty pixels. Otherwise, the copying over won't center. So I have 8 by 8 by 100 pixels per inch. You also set up your stage to be 8 by 8 by 100 pixels per inch. That is our animation resolution. Okay, now I am able to, on my assets, go to my topmost visible layer, hold down Option, and then go to Layer Merge Visible. If you hold down Option, it will merge everything into one layer at the top. If you don't hold down Option and you say Layer Merge Visible, then it will collapse all of your assets into one picture. So you want to do it in a non-destructive way. So you hold down Option, you say Layer Merge Visible, and then we are going to use shortcuts from here on out, though you can do it using these options. So the first is Command A. We're going to select all of that new combined layer. Command A. The next is Command C to copy it. It's under Edit, Copy. And then we go to our stage file and we do Edit, Paste, Command V. And now we have our second frame. So now you'll see that not just does the mist start to build in my second frame, but the water starts to flicker as well. All right. Now I can save my stage. I go back to my assets, and this is an important stage that can get really confusing if you miss it, or step. I need to hit Command D to deselect and then delete that merged layer. So remove that shot. I think of it like I'm setting up all my setting and my characters and my props on a set, and then I'm taking a Polaroid of it, right? And the Polaroid goes like zzz, comes out of the camera. And I have it. That's what holding down Option and saying Layer Merge Visible does. Takes the shot. But then I need to take that Polaroid and put it into my film, into my stage. And I do that. But then I have to remember I have to clear the Polaroid. I need to take it out of the Polaroid chamber so the next shot can be made. That's what deleting that is. So now I set up my next frame. My next frame, just very basic, I'm going to just do one more where I play with the settings. So now I'm going to dim back the mist a little bit, and I'm going to flicker the water. But I might duplicate that. Mark it the same color so I know this is a water asset. And then I might just play with the levels a little bit. So I have 3 steps for the water instead of just 2. And that's what I get for making what looks like moving water in my landscape, right? Something I kind of need to animate. Okay, now I'm going to dodge it. And you can manipulate your assets any way you like, just so the light hits it a little bit differently as it's moving. And so that, and you'll notice that I can layer it on top of itself. So I'm going to play with the opacity a little bit. So now I have 3 steps in the water. I can go from this to this to this, and I can, as long as I don't have more than, if I don't have both of them on, which I can actually build up to, so I can actually have 4 different steps, because building with both layers, building with just one layer, building with the other layer, and then not having it, right? So with this one, I'm just going to go to this step. Okay, now I've set up my shot. I can check. This is why I do it in 2 files. I can check that it's different than this shot. And it's nice to hit Command 0 and just fit it all on frame. So yes, it's a little bit different. The water's different, the setting's different. Okay, so now what do I do? Actually, I'm going to build it a little bit higher, because just flickering it back and forth. I'm just going to build it 7%. Okay. So now I hold down Option. I'm going to make my shot. Layer, merge visible. Command A to select it all. Command C to copy it all. Click on the stage. Command V, paste it in. So now I have 3 frames of animation. You see how that water is moving? It's flickering. I'm just going to move it back and forth through those 3. Okay, now it's time to introduce my character. Time to get to my second keyframe. So everything I've been doing so far has been just in-betweens, transitions. Okay, so now I need to clear the photo from the Polaroid. So what do? I have to deselect, because if I don't hit deselect and I just delete, then it just gives me an empty layer, and that will get really confusing. So before I hit delete, I need to do Command D to deselect and then delete, and it will delete the whole merged layer. Even though it doesn't look different there, it helps you understand what your layers are doing. Okay, next, I'm going to build this up just a little bit more. Slowing it down, about 5. And then I'm going to flicker the water. Back to there. And now I get to introduce my hero character. Not him. So let's bring that hero character in. So then I go to my folder. And I have my hero asset here, my PNG from assignment 2. I drag and drop it in. And I play with it. So this is my hero asset. I'm going to mark that green. I'm not going to touch that one. But if I ever need to go back to it, that's the smart object. What I am going to do is duplicate it and then rasterize that duplicate so I can start puppet warping and playing with it, posing it like a puppet. I'm going to do Command T. I'm going to flip it horizontally. And my idea is my creature is really big, comes in from the foreground. So actually, let's keep it as a smart object while I place it. And then I need to, once I get it the right size, I can play with puppet warping it. But I'm going to make this guy really big. It's all about surprises, right? So I could just set that up as my next frame. Command 0, fit it all on. Command 0, and then I see, is that different enough? Yeah, the water changes. Yeah, that works. Okay, so I go to my topmost visible layer. I hold down Option, I say Layer, Merge Visible. I'm going to be saying this a lot. Command A, Command C, go to your stage, Command V. I have my 4th animation frame. The creature appears. But not only does the creature appear, the water also changes. The mist also just shifts very slightly. I just did it by like 5%. Okay, now, Command D to deselect, delete that merge layer. I'm going to duplicate my hero layer, because I'm not going to change it just in that one layer for each shot. I'm going to keep a different copy for every movement. So if I decide later, oh, I need a movement in between those 2 movements, I have all the steps, right? Just like for Wallace and Gromit, they keep all of the different expressions for the dolls, as separate assets, so they don't have to rebuild them each time. Okay, now I'm going to use Puppet Warp. And what's nice is Photoshop is powerful enough, it supports Puppet Warp even when you're on a smart object. So if you're going to play with size like I am, this can be a good way to do it. So I'm going to puppet warp the anatomy of the creature, and then I'm going to pose it. Right. Kind of angle this head in a little bit, make it look like it's walking. I'm going to push its chest forward.